As she left the soup kitchen, Lena pulled her tattered coat tighter, the cold piercing each layer she held onto. A small sandwich in her hands, her only meal for the day. As she passed a park bench nearby, her eyes caught sight of an old man curled up shivering under thin rags. His hands were trembling, and his eyes looked distant, hollow. Most people passed him by without a glance. But Lena stopped. She knew what it felt like to be invisible for a moment. She hesitated. She hadn't eaten all day, and the ache in her stomach reminded her of it. But then, looking at the man, she saw something deeper, a reflection of herself. Only further down a road she feared. Without a word, she stepped closer, knelt by his side, and gently placed the sandwich in his hands. A man looked up, startled eyes wide with disbelief. "You look like you need this more than I do," she whispered softly, her voice catching in the cold air. She smiled genuinely warmly and turned to walk away. Before he could respond, he stared after her, silent, still holding the sandwich as if it were made of gold. Lena didn't expect anything in return. She didn't even look back. She had no idea. Her simple act of kindness, so quietly given, had just set something powerful in motion, something that would return to her in a way she could never have imagined. As Lena's figure disappeared down the icy sidewalk, the old man remained motionless on the bench, clutching the sandwich like it was something sacred. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his weathered face. He waited until no one was watching, then slowly sat upright with surprising poise. With a quiet sigh, he reached up and removed his knit cap, the disheveled beard, the dirty layers. It had all been part of the act. Beneath the grime was Richard Harland, a millionaire, no, not for fame, but for his reclusive nature and hidden philanthropy. For weeks, Richard had wandered the city in disguise in the hopes of finding something he feared no longer existed: selfless human kindness. He had witnessed people turn away and mock him. But today something changed. Instead of just seeing a homeless man, Lena had seen him truly, without judgment or expectation. Her kindness was instinctive and came from a place of deep compassion. He looked down at the sandwich she had given so freely, even though it was probably all she had. His eyes misted over, but from a deeper hope that kindness still existed in the hearts of the forgotten, the struggling, and the unseen. "She gave me everything she had without knowing who I was," and he whispered to himself, emotion thick in his throat at that moment. Richard Harland silently vowed that this girl would not be forgotten, and that her kindness would not only be appreciated but also transform her life. Lena had given away her sandwich 3 days prior. She sat on her creaky couch folding laundry that she had hand-washed in her small sink when a sudden knock broke the silence, startling her. Her stomach still reminded her of the sacrifice, but her heart didn't regret it, because the cold evening had melted something inside of her, even though the outside world remained harsh. She hesitated before opening the door. "Are you Lena?" he asked courteously, as a tall man in a sharp suit stood there with polished shoes that showed out sharply against her worn floor. She nodded, her heart pounding. "Mr. Harland sent me." "I think you have the wrong person," she said, blinking in confusion. Gently shaking his head, the man said, "No, ma'am. The one with the kindest heart deserves a new start," he stated quite clearly. He then gave her the keys and the letter. "You'll want to read this," he remarked with a kind grin before turning to go. Lena sat on the edge of her bed with the envelope trembling in her hands as she stood motionless in the doorway. Her fingers fumbled as she opened it, revealing a handwritten letter and documents, legal papers, a scholarship form, and a cafe deed in her name. She gasped, her eyes wide, the words on the page blurring through tears. She had no idea that one small act, one sandwich, would bring a knock that would change everything. As she unfurled the letters, her breath caught, and each word made her more and more shocked. "Dear Lena." Tears filled her eyes as she read that enclosed was a check for $100,000 more than she had ever imagined holding. But it was more than just money. It was a full scholarship to the city's top culinary school, the very dream she had buried under years of struggle, and then real keys to a cafe. 3 days ago, you gave without expecting anything in return, sharing what little you had with someone you thought had even less. That small act did more than just feed a man. It restored something I thought was lost hope in humanity. Richard Harland once owned and now gifted to her a space to cook, to serve, to start anew. Her hand shook as she held everything close, unable to speak, barely able to breathe. She looked around her small, dim apartment, once filled with survival, and now suddenly lit by possibility. One sandwich, the letter ended, one act of kindness, fed a soul and awakened a destiny. Lena wept not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that the smallest thing she gave away had just returned to her in a way that would change her life forever. 1 year later, the scent of freshly baked bread and simmering soup drifted through the open doors of Lena's table, a cozy little cafe on the corner of a busy street. Inside, laughter mixed with the clink of cups and the hum of soft music. But every Friday, the vibe shifted. Tables were reserved not for customers who could pay, but for those who couldn't. Lena moved between them with ease, serving hot meals, sharing warm smiles, and sitting to listen when needed. She never forgot where she came from, how cold that bench had been, how empty her stomach felt, how powerful it had been to give anyway. On the cafe wall, a framed photo of Richard Harlan smiled down, surrounded by handwritten thank you notes from those Lena had helped. Beneath the picture, her favorite quote was painted in soft script. When people asked her why she gave so freely and why she did it, she would just smile and respond, "You never know who you're helping or how that kindness will come back." Compassion doesn't have to be extravagant to change lives. Lena looked around the busy room, her heart full, and whispered to herself the words she now lived by. The smallest act of love can echo louder than you ever imagined. The cafe wasn't just a place for food. It was a place of second chances, new beginnings, and hope baked into every bite.